Welcome to You Can Trust Yourself with Meg and Maggie. Nothing feels as good as listening to your own voice, and each week we have conversations to help you do just that. Get comfy, grab your favorite fun drink, and let's dive into this week's episode.
Hi everyone, we are back with episode 101 for you today. I know that off the top of my head because we just made such a big deal out of episode 100, so I'm like, we are on to 101, baby. But we are going to do a fun episode today. We call it a fun episode because sometimes we come here with like the vulnerability and the stories and the depths, and today we want to show up as Meg and Maggie, which is something that we always try and do. However, when we were thinking about like, okay, what do we want to talk about today? Let's do something a little different. We were talking about this concept that we are both actively working on of we're ourselves. However, there's this, like part of us in some ways that shows up in different scenarios, like quote unquote on versus like us. And so it doesn't even have to be a versus. It's just, this might be an easier way for me to explain it. Have you ever showed up, which I know the answer is probably a resounding yes. Have you ever showed up where you're like, okay, I'm here and I'm me, but I'm like, there's an element of, I got to be socially acceptable and I got to be a little performative and I've got to be on and I've got to be blah, 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 right? We want to talk today and share what that experience has been like for us and how we are actively trying to become as congruent as possible so that that on part of us can rest. Because to be honest, Maggie, my on part, she kind of bores me these days. It's like, I'm really excited to get into this, but I'm having like a little aha moment of like, I worked so freaking hard to become on Meg, likable Meg, right? People-pleasing Meg, relatable Meg, that I worked so hard to become her that now that I'm good at it, right? I'm kind of like, she's kind of boring.
Yeah, mine also feels tired. There's this like level of guardedness, I think, is how I experience it most. Is like you go into certain situations and you're like, can I be fully myself? I'm not sure. So let me put up this little bit of a fence, and it's like I can peek through the little holes of the fence. We're not going to let myself fully out.
Yes. And one thing that I just want to say before we dive into this is Maggie and I's own experience. And I am very, very mindful and very aware of the fact that for me, my experience is very different than how other individuals, specifically individuals of other cultures, races, religious groups, and anyone else who may experience the need to switch in some ways. In the therapeutic world, we call it code switching. And so I just want to acknowledge that like my experience of that is in no way the same as those who have needed to do that for honestly survival in our world. And so just wanted to say that. We'll get into all of the things, but I hear what you're saying, Maggie, like the peeking through of it just feels good to be authentically ourselves. And I feel like I'm not always authentically, fully myself. And it's something that I'm working on.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think going back to the fence analogy for me, I feel like I'm always authentically myself to me, right? But it's how much of that do I show to others? And the goal for me at this point in life, there is something when you hit 30, let me tell you, you just stop caring. But there's this goal of like, how can I share more of myself with other people without fear of them rejecting me? Right. And I think that is one of the biggest things that stops me from sharing everything is this like fear of rejection or fear of people not liking me or not liking what I have to show or have to say. And I think when we look at it from that perspective, hiding some things is, like you said, it's really great for survival, right? And like for fitting in and for getting love and all of that in scenarios where maybe you don't feel 100% confident. that you will receive those things if you are 100% yourself. And so I think the our ability to be on, like you're saying, is a skill, right? It's a skill. And the goal for me, at least right now, is to be able to know when using that skill is in my best interest and when it is just something I'm used to doing, but I actually don't need to.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good distinction, because I I think about that often of like, am I just used to this at this point? Like, it's almost something that, you're right, it can be extremely like nurtured into us out of necessity and out of honestly just learned behavior of like, when I do this, this happens, right? Or when I show up as this happens. And I have noticed it in the way that I show up with individuals in my life. I still, as an adult, am becoming more and more aware of when I show up as blank, I receive blank from certain people.
Yes.
And that is something that I am actively trying to move away from, because I've gotten to the quote unquote survival place. I'm an adult who is capable of making my own decisions, and I'm capable of trusting myself as I make those decisions, right? And I continuously nurture that. Therefore, these techniques, these parts of me who have come along to get me through different scenarios or different relationships, she can rest now. And I want her to rest. I want to thank you for being here with me in these moments and helping me kind of navigate the world. And I'm angry at the world for having that be a necessity in the first place. And that's a more broader, I don't need to go into all the details of that, but like, especially as I think about other individuals who it is even harder to navigate that, it makes me angry that that is something that is required so prevalently in our society.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It anger is a good way to describe it. I also think it makes me feel a little bit sad, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And okay, so I think we've set the stage pretty well. I do want to pivot because we did say this was going to be a fun episode. We already dove deep into the depths. So
we
we
just
want to
can't
pivot.
help ourselves,
I know.
it seems.
I know we can't. And I think that that is beautiful. And that's part of, what makes this show special is that you're not just going to get surface level opinions or thoughts, right? We're going to go deeper. We're going to tie it all together. We're going to tie it to bigger picture concepts, which is great. And now we are going to become very relatable. And I hope that you have some laughs because we are going to share some things that we do them because of this thought process, right? This like need to be on versus feeling like we can share everything. And so I'm really excited. We didn't like plan out every single example we're going to share. So we'll probably just go back and forth and, riff on them a little bit. But beforehand, I just want to show you all, if you are watching this either on Spotify, you can watch the full video or you can watch it on YouTube. I just want to show you how color coordinated we are right now. Okay.
Yes.
So Megan, as she talked about, did you talk about your yellow tumbler on the
stories?
last episode?
On stories. So if you're not following us on Instagram or TikTok, I talked about it there.
Yeah, so she did a little unboxing of her new hydro jug. If you don't know, we're both obsessed with the hydro jugs. And so I have my blue one today, which matches Megan's headphones perfectly. And she has her new yellow one, which matches my sweatshirt. And we didn't even plan it.
Mm-hmm. We're always color coordinating in some way, I feel like. Mm-hmm. There always seems to be a level of color coordination. But yes, we really do love our hydro jugs, each of us. So hydro jug, come talk to us here soon, because we truly, I was telling Maggie that before we get into everything else, this is a fun topic too. When I love something, I love something. And so it's like, I love my hydro jug. This is my second one. I'm a very loyal person to products when I love them. But I'm excited to get into this, Maggie. Can you start, because this was kind of like this little story that you told me was kind of the basis of this episode of like, what the heck? Why do we do that? Why is it like this? And so you told me a story about your experience yesterday, and I was like, yes, please share that, because I think it is so relatable to the trustees, and it is something that appears so silly and surface level, yet, which we're not going to get into because Maggie gave us the reminder of like, keep it light, Meg. It's really hard for me to keep it light, everybody.
We're
I
going to
don't
do
know.
2 examples per one in-depth topic.
Yes, you'll understand how it ties into the depths of things, which I can't help myself, but I'm going to try and keep it up and on the light side. So please tell your story because it really applies to exactly what we're talking about.
Okay, so this literally happened yesterday. If I am on any sort of pedestal in your view, I'm about to knock myself off real fast, and I don't want to be there anyway. So we just want to make sure that, we're all on the same playing field here. Okay, so yesterday I leave my house. I'm out of the house all day, which for me right now is unusual. Like usually I spend a lot of my day at home. I can do almost all of my work from home. And so I left my house in the morning and I met up with a friend for lunch. And again, if you're following, well, I didn't post it on the podcast social media, but on my social media, I took a picture of my lunch, which was this delicious avocado toast on multigrain bread with eggs and arugula. And it was delicious. And I'm sitting in a coffee shop and I'm eating that and I have my little journal and it was like this very nice aesthetic picture, right? So I leave there, I go to my physical therapy appointment, and then after that, I just had a couple errands to run. I had to go get another number 1 balloon for our reel that you saw of our 100 episode because for some reason my number 1 deflated. So, I was just out and about. And after I got done at the dollar store, I was hungry and I was craving a Coke Zero. And I love Coke Zero. It is my favorite soda. And I really wanted to get it from McDonald's because there's just something about the fountain soda, from McDonald's. And I don't do that often, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. So I'm in my car. I go through the McDonald's drive-thru. I get 6 chicken nuggets and my soda, and I am on my way home. And literally I pulled out of the drive-thru and I thought to myself, I was like, I don't feel like I could share this. Like there's just something about that just feels like, oh, Maggie, the health professional, she eats McDonald's. Like, that's crazy. She would never, right? And there's this I feel like there's this persona that I don't intentionally portray, but other people have of me and just happens is she eats perfectly all the time. She never has any dairy. She never has any sugar. She would never eat that, right? And I'm not trying to portray that because that's not me at all, but I didn't share it. And I felt like I could share this, but I feel like I might get judged if I do. And so I didn't. And that's it. That's the story.
It was that story. It's light, right? It's a story. However, it's the tip of the iceberg. The nuggets are on the top of the iceberg, people.
Literally.
Okay? Those delicious golden crunchy nuggies are on the top of the iceberg.
They were good too. Sometimes they're not good, but those ones were really good.
I gotta tell you, McDonald's for a long time, I was like, I'm kind of over it. I really moved over to Chick-fil-A and things. There's something, McDonald's now is nostalgic for me, childhood nostalgic, because it's pretty much the only fast food we had where we grew up. And so after games and stuff, that's where we'd go. It hits different for me now as an adult. So
especially because I was in Liberty and that is the childhood McDonald's.
Yes, that is the childhood McDonald's. And so, okay, Megan, keep it light.
No, go ahead. I'll for you.
When we think about that, there's so many layers we could pull apart, right? There's so many layers. I'm going to save us the layers a little bit because I think you all can kind of assume and know that there's so many factors that go into these decisions that we make, right? Maggie just explained some of them of image and wanting in some ways subconsciously to uphold that image. And because we want in so many ways, we try as humans not to be hypocrites, right? That's a word that has been demonized in our society. Don't be a hypocrite. If you say you're this, don't be that. And what that does, unfortunately, is it puts us in these boxes. So then when we, our precious little human selves, step out of the boxes, we need to hide that we've stepped out of the box, right?
Ding, ding,
ding. Ding, ding, ding. That's exactly it. So if you think about it like that, Maggie, we're just going to go with it, Maggie. You have this box around you of health, right? That is a
Yep.
box that you have built your life around in so many ways, career-wise, as a person, blah, blah, blah. And it's like this box that if I dip my toe out of this box of quote unquote health, then wait, am I not working towards my health? And when I hear you say that, because I'm somebody who can be extremely expansive and believe that people are not meant to fit in these boxes, right? There are so many different layers of health to me, and those nuggets, I'm going to assume, especially if they were good ones, because we know sometimes, they don't hit the same. If they were good ones and you went to a childhood spot and got a crispy Coke Zero, I'm going to assume that it brought you some joy in that moment.
Yeah, it did.
Tell me about the joy.
Well, I think the first component of joy for me is that I love food. I love it all. If I can eat it, I will. And so that was the first thing, is like, I'm actually hungry and I am going to eat something now. And so that was the first component of it. But I definitely agree with what you're saying of, I was in a town that I, as of recently, have not spent that much time in, right? Like, it's not like I'm there every day, but I was there every day when I was a child, and when you're in a place like that, sometimes you want to do things that you have done in your past, right? It's like a different version of you that gets to peek back through. And so I was really excited to go through the McDonald's drive-thru. I'm not even going to lie about it. And I was really excited to get the Coke Zero from McDonald's and not like a bottle from the gas station, because they taste different. And if you agree, let us know. If you don't agree, you can still let us know, but you're wrong. Anyway.
You can have your own opinion and you can trust yourself, but I'm just going to let you know that you are wrong.
Yeah, you should try again if you think that they don't taste different, because they do. Anyway, but I was experiencing joy, and like you said, the nuggets were delicious, and I do wish that I felt like I could share it. Like, I felt like I feel like I wish I was compelled to share this on Instagram, just like I shared the avocado toast, because both of them brought me extreme levels of joy. Like the avocado toast, I took a bite and I was like, oh my goodness, this is so good. Like, this is delicious. This is one of the best ones that I've ever had. And I kind of felt the same way about the chicken nuggets, but I didn't share it in the same way.
Yes. That is, I'm going to tell, it's not really a story, but it's a concept that I was like, oh my gosh, that is the most me thing I've ever heard in my entire life. And I just want to briefly say, like, that box of like stepping out of it and then feeling like we need to hide it, it really does come from a place of like shame of things being demonized societally, things being demonized in familiar structures, and then the shit that we put on ourselves, right, can be tied to so many different areas of us. And it's really freeing when we challenge those things. And so I was watching a video and they were saying how they had just spent like however much money at Costco on like grass-fed beef, no seed oil, this. They walked all around looking for, regenerative agriculture, like something. It was all connected to like all the things that I really try and align myself with a lot of the time. However, then they said at the end, they were like, I found all these things, but you better believe I picked up a hot dog and whatever else they had at the thing. And it's the most polar opposite thing. I won't purchase, right? I go around the store and I purposely look for Applegate Farms hot dogs that are like 100% grass-fed beef, blah, 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 right? And on the way out, I'm grabbing a hot dog from Costco that who even, it's a mystery meat.
Definitely not Applegate Farms.
It's definitely not Applegate Farms. Who the heck knows what it is? And I'm sitting there like, this is the most delicious thing I've ever had in my whole life. And that, so much of me feels still very real in this moment. Like, this isn't a topic. There's a lot of topics that I'm like, hey, I've been there. Like, let's talk about it now because I can give you some pointers. I don't have any freaking pointers for you on this one. In fact, somebody give me some pointers, okay? Please, trustees, this is a community. It goes both ways. Come help out your co-host, because why do I feel like it has to be pretty or aesthetic or blah, blah, blah to present it or share it? Why is that? And again, we could do a deep dive and tell you all the reasons why, because there's so many factors. But it's that choice of, yes, I feel this way. Yes, I feel some shame for a variety of reasons. And I'm going to eat that hot dog. And it's so great. And I love it so much. And it brings me so much joy. And can't that just be enough?
Yep. It can.
It makes me think, I want to share one more thing. It's related. I remember when I was first, my husband and I were first living together. It was like when we were still dating. And I remember talking to my therapist at the time. And I remember it was kind of when I was, when you start to live together and you're like, oh, now I like can't hide anything from you because like we live together. Like you're going to see me now, right? I can't just like show up at your place or you show up at mine and like hide all the parts of me. Like now we live together. So like all the parts of me are here, right? Yeah. And I remember saying to my therapist, and I was like, I feel like I want to be vulnerable, but it's like I want to like present my harder emotions to him on this like pretty platter. Do you remember this? I feel like we've talked about this before. Of like, yes. I want to share. I want to be quote unquote vulnerable because in my head it was like, oh, it's cool to be vulnerable, right? I want to be honest, blah, blah, blah. It's cool to be evolved. And then I was having these super like secretive meetings with my therapist. Not secretive in like he didn't know I was going to therapy, but secretive in the way of like I'm hiding these parts of me, the true, real, honest parts of me, so that I can present it in a way that's like, hey, I've got these issues, and I've got this, at the time I was new into my diagnosis of OCD, I've got these crippling thoughts that make me question my entire existence, but I'm too scared to bring that to you because I don't want to overwhelm you. So let me put it together on a nice platter for you, specifically like a toile one, maybe like a little charcuterie board style, so it's like really aesthetic for you. And then let me present it to you and be like, don't worry about the cleanup. I'm in therapy. I'm going to take care of all my own stuff. Oh. And that is related to what we're talking about of like, that's on Meg. I'm still Meg. I'm still bringing you my stuff, but I'm packaging it in this pretty digestible way so that it don't scare you or overwhelm you. Yep. And that, if I would have kept doing that, right? If I would have kept doing that forever, it's exhausting. And I'm actively still trying to figure out, Megan, for God's sake, serve the shit on a paper plate. Stop trying to make it so pretty. Your goal is not to be this pretty, perfect on human that you've been trying to be for so many years.
Yeah. This is so relatable. I think that when we have fear of sharing things, at least for me, it's like, well, what's the reaction going to be, right? Like, what's the reaction to this going to be? And something I've learned is that if I am sharing something with someone, and going back to like one of my foundational beliefs of life around kindness, right? If I'm sharing something with someone and I'm attacking them, well, then you better believe I'm probably not going to like the result I get in return, right? And what has happened to me is that in the past, I have grouped all sharing into sharing in a way that attacks someone else and therefore I get hurt, right? So then you don't share anything because you're scared of what they're going to do, right? Where I feel like if we can not attack other people, right? And you're talking about something that has nothing to do with Matt, right? Like it's all about you. And so there should be no reason why you would receive any sort of reaction that would not be supportive, right? And if you are receiving a reaction that's not supportive, that's a conversation for another day. But when we are sharing things about ourselves that are truly about ourselves, then there's a really good chance that the people we're sharing them with are going to support and love us because they support and love us, right? They don't want us to present ourselves in this perfect package either. And like I said, if they do, that's a conversation for another day. But I find that at least when I'm on the receiving end of someone sharing something vulnerable with me, I want them to be honest. Like I want them to tell me the truth, because if they don't, then we don't have a good experience going through that together, because I can't actually be there for them in the way that they need me to be there for them, right? And I think that most other people feel that same way too.
It makes me, I think about this a lot in my own little world, because when I'm in like therapy mode, like when I'm with my clients and there with them, I have all like well-established relationships now. So there comes a level when you build up like that therapeutic alliance that like a lot of guards come down. Not mine necessarily, because I'm still there to serve them, of course.
Yeah.
But my clients are able to speak in a way that is very hard to find in the quote unquote real world, right?
Yes.
So I call it kind of like my therapy world and my real world. And sometimes I have a really hard time popping back over into real world because I love therapy world so much, right? Because therapy world, you can show up, and when I say, hi, how has your week been going, right? My clients, once they kind of trust me and can feel like they can really be themselves, I know that when they're sharing what they're sharing, it's honest. Whether it's I'm actually having a really great week, or I'm having a meh week, or I'm in a really, really difficult place right now and I'm really struggling. That level of honesty and authenticity, I often feel is like incongruent to my real world experience, which has kind of made it hard for me to show up in the quote unquote real world, because now conversations fall flat for me when I don't feel that vulnerable authenticity between the two of us. So I'll notice this when I go out. I recently signed up for pickleball camp, which is freaking fabulous. Did I tell you that, Maggie?
No.
Yes, I'm in camp, everybody. For the whole month of February, I'm in pickleball camp.
That is awesome.
It's fantastic. Okay. And I'm loving it. And I'm actually pretty talented. So I'm a
Wow.
natural-ish, skilled-ish pickleballer. And I can't wait to report back and tell you all about my pickleball experiences. But anyways, I'm in camp. Okay. So I'm meeting all of these new people, and these new camp friends is what I'm calling them. And it's interesting because I'll show up there and it's a lot of like societal norm. Nobody's doing anything quote unquote wrong, but it's a lot of, hi, how are you? Good. Yep. You too. Have a good day. You know, the stereotypical things that we do. And I'm not here to judge that or shame that. There's nothing wrong with showing up in the world. And half the time that is how I'm feeling. Half the time I'm like, I'm good. How are you doing? Like that's truly like an honest answer, except for the moments, which is what we're talking about, when I feel like I have to hide it. So there have been so many moments in my life where I haven't been good and I haven't been fine and I haven't been whatever, insert any answer I've given, right? And there's this like incongruence and this on Meg version that comes out that's like, I'm good. How are you doing? And I'm practicing, because I still, you know, sometimes I'll still be having like a tough day and I'll be like, I'm good. How are you? Because you just kind of like, that's what we do, right? We're so conditioned to doing that. But I'm trying so hard to share some more authenticity of honesty. And it's a hard place to be in, because I believe so much in self-responsibility and self-trust that it is our jobs as humans to take care of ourselves, right? We can lean on others, we can have support and connection with other beautiful human beings, and it's our job to take care of our mental well-being, right? And our emotional well-being and all the things that go into well-being. So it's a hard like line that I'm finding of like, I want to tell you all the things. However, actually no, that's not true. I don't want to tell you all the things. However, if I want to tell you a little bit of the things, I still notice myself being like, what can I tell you and what can't I tell you? Because I am cognizant and scared that therapy Meg is super comfortable there, right? But not everybody's comfortable within that world. And I also don't want to make other people uncomfortable. And here we go, the hypocrisy. And it's not my job to make them not uncomfortable necessarily, right? It doesn't mean that I want to like dump on them and scare them and get them worried or whatever it may be. Um, so it's a balance that I don't know how to do necessarily. But I'm actively working on, I know that I don't want to do this fake shit. So I don't know how to do the true authentic shit with you humans out in the world. I know how to do it in therapy world, right? So how do I take therapy world fun and bring it a little bit over and move it more towards quote unquote real world?
I love that. I love the distinction that you have between the two, because I'm sure it helps you like realize where you are, and like go back and forth a little bit. But I am currently, but over more of like the last year or so, have experienced this so heavily with when last year 2 of my dogs got cancer and they passed away in the same week. And I spent months going back and forth to the vet doing cancer treatments, like all of that. I had to stop working. I did not work until really like, I would say November, I kind of started working again, but really like January, I started working again a little bit. And there were months and months and months where people would say, "Hey, how are you?" Because I haven't seen them in a while, whatever, and I'd be like, "I'm good. How are you?" And then I was like, I am not good. Like, I am the farthest thing from good. And I had that conversation with my therapist over the last year so many times of like, how do I discern when I can share? What do I share? Who do I share it with? How do I be honest about this without being overwhelming, right? How do I share in a way that makes me feel like I'm being honest, but I'm not dumping on other people, right? Because like you're saying, it's not their responsibility, but some people do want to listen, and it's like this whole going back and forth. And I had to what I started doing was like, let's say you asked me, "Hey Maggie, how are you?" I'm like, "I'm good. How are you?" And then I would say, "Actually, I'm not that good." And then I would give them like a little bit of just a little, the little snapshot will happen. And then depending on their response, if they wanted to engage in conversation with me, I would share whatever I felt like sharing at that time. Right. And I was not perfect at it. And I felt very uncomfortable. But I feel like we've talked about this a lot, where you have to give yourself permission to fail or like be wrong and try again. And when I do that, I try to give myself permission to try again, like as quickly as possible. Right. So I would do it in the middle of the conversation. Like if you said, "Hey Maggie, how are you?" I'm like, "I'm good. How are you?" They'd be like, "Actually, I'm really not that good." I'm so used to saying that I'm good that I just said that I'm good, but I'm not really that good. And I think like it caught some people off guard sometimes, and it would catch me off guard sometimes too. But I think it helped me be able to tap in a little bit more to how I'm actually feeling. And it also showed me that 99.9% of people really care. And like when someone asks you how you are, it's probably okay if you tell them you're not good. Because if they didn't care at all, they wouldn't ask. I really think that, like, at least for me, I don't know how you experience this, but if I don't care, I'm not going to ask at all. Like, I'm just going to say hi and move on. Like that's, or if I'm not, even if I'm not in the space to have a conversation, I'm not going to start a conversation I can't have, And so, okay, I think occasionally you'll run into someone who is rude or whatever, but for the most part, I don't think that actually happens.
That is, there's so much stuff there, like good stuff, like so much, like, thank you so much for sharing it. Because one thing that I really noticed as you said that was, by you, I freaking love the like, Hi, I'm good. Actually, I'm not that good.
Actually,
It's like
not
the
that good.
best thing I've ever heard because it's the most relatable shit that I've ever heard. Of like, hi, I'm good. And the freaking refreshingness. I don't think that's a word. Refreshingness. It feels right though.
Yeah.
The refreshingness of, wait, actually, I'm sorry. I'm actually not that good is the most liberating shit ever. Okay, because if somebody did that in practice with me, if I was talking to somebody out in the real world, let's pretend it's at pickleball, right?
Yes, pickleball camp.
And pickleball camp. And one of my fellow campers said, hi. And I said, hi, how are you? And they were like, I'm good. And then I was like, oh, that's great. You know, whatever we do. And then they were like, wait, I'm really not that good. I just said that and I'm practicing not saying things that I don't mean. I would instantly be like, I want to get to know you more.
Yeah, exactly. I'll be like, oh,
I would instantly be like, holy shit, you're a human I like. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, wait, I think I might like you. I want to see if I like you. Mm-hmm. Because that level of, one, awareness, two, the fact that you're working on something is like automatically like, ooh, there might be something here for connecting of like, you're working on yourself? Like, cool, tell me more. And then the honesty of going back in a moment and saying like, actually, I didn't mean that. And I want to say something honest. I would feel like, wow. One, I would feel like, wow, okay, they felt comfortable enough to correct themselves with me. That means that I give off enough of a warm spirit, hopefully, that they were like, okay, no, I think I can tell her the truth, right? Because that is a great feeling when we can show up for one another in that way. And so I love this. I love what we're talking about here because just like we've talked about, if you go back to our episode on the 3 Ps of self-trust, that's what you're doing. You're just building some self-trust. And the thing that we always tell you all the time is we can't teach you how to do that. I can't teach you how to build self-trust. I can give you some pointers and some tools and some things that I'm actively working on. I can't tell you how that's going to look for you, and nor freaking should I, right? That is the literal essence of self-trust, is that it's a process within yourself. And so if you go back to that episode with the 3 Ps where we talk about practice, this is exactly what Maggie was just saying of it's practice. Say something to somebody, crack that door open, put the pretty shit on a paper plate instead and say, here's my paper plate full of shit. Are you going to accept it in a way that feels like you might be a safe, warm human for me? Or did I just learn that you only like China and I don't really want to bring out my China all the time?
You learn a lot about people too. And it's really helpful because we've talked about this before, but not everybody's going to give you everything you need, right? Mm-hmm. And we talked about how just because somebody doesn't fulfill one need for you doesn't make them overall 100% bad, right? But you do start to learn and be able to discern, okay, I can have this conversation with this person. I don't want to have this conversation with this person because it doesn't help me, right? That doesn't mean I don't want to play pickleball with them. Maybe I just don't want to tell them about my dogs passing away and my brain shutting off and not being able to function. You know what I mean? Like very different things going on here. And there are going to be people who I want to have that conversation with and play pickleball with, right? And so it's a little bit different for everybody. But that was another thing for me that I felt super uncomfortable sharing, which I still feel like I'm sharing it, but it still feels uncomfortable, is the fact that I like legitimately could not work. And I've never experienced that before in my life. Like I've gone through so much hard stuff, like relatively, right? And I've always been able to just push through, get it done. Like, you're stronger than this. You can do it. Like, you can take care of everyone, blah, 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 blah. And that was not my experience this last year. And I felt so uncomfortable because I'm an entrepreneur. I always have projects going on. Like, I'm always doing a bunch of different things. I'm coaching people. I'm writing, you know, and people are like, what are you working on right now? And I would lie. And I would, Kaz and I, you know, we're just running the businesses and stuff. And I'm like, I am like sleeping all day because I cannot function, like legitimately cannot function. And I felt so uncomfortable sharing it. And then eventually I got to a point where I was like, all right, Maggie, you got to like tell someone, at least someone, the truth, and one of my best friends was here for my birthday, and I started telling her, and immediately I felt relief. Immediately my whole body like exhaled, right? And I was like, oh, okay, I can do this. First of all, second of all, wow, she still loves me. What a concept. Who would have thought? But I was so afraid that people would look at me differently.
This is, we can't help ourselves, everybody. We love a deep dive. That's what we're good at. But it's a great deep dive of what Maggie is saying. And one thing that I really want to like highlight what you said, Maggie, is that when your body goes, right? We actually talk about that a lot of times in therapy of like, sometimes that's a great like regulating tool is like give somebody a hug, and a safe person a hug until your body says, it can be really, really powerful. So if you want something fun, like just try that and hold on to that hug or whatever it may be for until your body gives that exhale. But that exhale is everything, because it means to me, because here I go back in the therapy world, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Maggie, but what it sounds like to me is that your body went from conditioning, Maggie, right? Like what I've learned I have to do to get through this world, to authentic Maggie. Your body switched into that. And what I want to make very apparent, what I want to bring some awareness on, and this is I'll do the quick deep dive, everybody, is that we can go our whole lives in that state, right? We can go our whole lives in that state of not taking the exhale. And there are individuals who have to go through their whole lives without taking that exhale. And hopefully we all find solace in certain moments and people in our spaces and whatever that may be. But that is a very, very real experience for so many of us. And the active, practice of let's just try it. Post the freaking nuggies, right?
Next time
Post
you're going to see the nuggies.
Huh?
Next time they're going to see the nuggies.
Next time we're going to see the nuggies. I'm going to practice that too. Like, and please like reach out to us on social media, like send us your stuff. Like we're so focused this season on building this community because that's what we want. We want community, right? And I, for a long time, have been like, is it possible to have a virtual community? And we're going to freaking find out, right? With all of you, because it feels like maybe we can. And there is this layer that we really wanted to bring you today of those parts that we feel we have to hide. Let's try and hide them less. I know that we're not going to be out here like it's hard to show up in the world fully like raw in a lot of ways. In a lot of ways, it's not safe to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not safe for a lot of people to do that. So I don't want to encourage anybody to do those things and then it not be safe. But we need to find the places where we can, where your body can exhale, where you can exhale, and you can let that quote unquote on part of you rest, so that authentic, real, true part of you can breathe. And then let's figure out, how do we move towards, within our own neighborhood, our own community, our own family system, how do we cultivate an environment where we don't have to live like this, right? That's not going to happen overnight. And it's definitely not going to, which we're probably going to do an episode on this soon, but like, it's definitely not happening on a macro level anytime soon. It's not happening on a systemic level anytime soon, unfortunately. So how can it happen in a micro level? How can it happen within ourselves? How can it happen within our family? How can it happen within our community, right? Of being able to show up and let that on part of us rest, an authentic part of us breathe and live and take up space. And all right, everybody, I did a deep dive and I'm going to leave it at that. Maggie, do you have anything else you want to add?
I love your deep dives. We tried so hard, guys.
We're so hard. We're just deep people. I don't know how else to say it. But I love that about us. That's real.
I do too. I love it too. And I hope that some of these examples, maybe you could see yourself in some of them, whether they're exactly the same with your chicken nuggets and your Coke Zero, or maybe it's something along the same lines, right? But we just wanted to share because we're all just humans too, right? And we all have our things that we do that we feel guilty about or ashamed of for some reason that we shouldn't, right? And it's okay to start to let people in a little bit at a time in the places where you want to, right? And I like how you said, Meg, we're not out here saying just start sharing everything everywhere, because that's not really the jump that we want to make for our own safety and all the reasons, right? Like even just psychologically. But we can start letting people in. We can start sharing the things that make us human and that make us us and make us a little bit quirky or a little bit imperfect, right? And we can share our stuff on a paper plate. I love that visual so much. And I hope that this has inspired you to just be a little bit less hard on yourself with those things that you feel that you want to hide.
We love you all. Cheers to self-trust. I hope you have a wonderful week, and we will see you back here next Monday with a new episode.
Bye. Everyone. Thank you for joining us on another episode of You Can Trust Yourself with Meg and Maggie. Our mission is to leave you with encouragement and tools to nurture your ability to trust yourself. If you found this episode valuable, don't forget to subscribe and please share it with a friend. Then take a moment to leave us a 5-star rating and review. Your support helps our show grow, and for that, we are extremely grateful. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can watch the episodes. Till next week, lots of trust and love, Meg and Maggie.